You guys excelled in this all three phases.
Yeah, I mean, it's that was our point of emphasis. I mean, we didn't finish well last week at Loyola.
Okay.
We focused on that. I wanted to make sure at halftime that we came out and completed and competed, and I thought the kids did a great job of it.
Hello and welcome back to the Trinity League Football Podcast. I'm Dan Albano with OCVarsity in the Orange County Register, and I'm joined once again by Scott Barajas, our Trinity League insider, and we're ready to talk week 3 of the high school football season, and specifically, of course, the Trinity League teams, the league that maybe might be the best of the high school league west of the Mississippi. Scotty, how you doing tonight as we're approaching some one Thursday game on September 14th, Thursday? Got a couple Friday, and we got a couple on Saturday.
I'm doing pretty good, Dan. We're just waiting the week out to get some more football in. That Trinity League is just on fire right now. I think it was 17-1 if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And that one loss is Bosco, which is who'd figure, but the Trinity League is showing its strength right now.
Yeah, and the margin of victory. Not only do you have the stat they're 17-1, but all the margin of victories are really, we're talking multiple touchdowns. The highest margin of victory so far in the season, this young season, belongs to Santa Margarita. They've actually beat their margin of victory in their 3 games. Non-league games is just over 48 points, and the lowest margin of victory is Servite at 17.3, and then J. Sarah comes in with their lowest margin of victory so far, 21. So some big stats so far. Got 2 teams averaging over 50 points, just over 50 points. That's J. Sarah and Santa Margarita, and there's some defenses that just haven't given up anything. Of course, like we talked about, the Santa Margarita Eagles, 2 shutouts and a 7-point output. Against Alamany, they held Alamany to 7 points last week. They've only allowed 2.3 points. But Orange Lutheran, Mater Dei, St. John Bosco, Mater Dei, Orange Lutheran, St. John Bosco also have held their teams to single digits so far this year on the average. So we are going to review week 2 here with Scotty. We're going to hand out our grades like we always do. We're going to talk about some players of the week from each team like we always do. And then we're also going to preview this week's games. Like we said, we have Santa Margarita playing on Thursday. We have 3 games on Friday and 2 on Saturday as part of a showcase down in Mission Viejo. Just happens to be St. John Bosco and Mater Dei. So a lot to get to. We welcome everybody back on our Trinity League listeners here on the podcast. Thank you for listening. Please share with your fellow hardcore high school fans. That's what we're working for, right, Scotty?
Exactly. We go deep and we go inside.
That's right, man. All right, Scotty. Well, let's look back here on week 2, and we're going to start at the top of the board here. Week 2, these games were on September 8th on Friday. Let's start out with the game that you were at, Scotty. Mater Dei 42-0 over La Mirada. That game was highlighted by a 60-yard touchdown run by J.T. Daniels. My colleague Steve Fryer and I continue to marvel at the improved agility and agility of J.T. Daniels, a junior quarterback who last year he's been known as a pocket passer, but he's showing some wheels out there. But then you have the Mater Dei defense that pitched a shutout. What were your grades on the Monarchs?
They got an A on offense and they got the A on defense. It was La Mirada, and a lot of teams can, have that emotional letdown after a big win, after playing Gorman the week before. But Mater Dei just came in, took care of business, scoring the 42 points and holding La Mirada to 2 yards total offense in the first half of play. And the starters didn't play the second half, but Mater Dei scored on all 7 possessions. And the only thing that really stopped Mater Dei were their penalties. They had more penalties this game than they did the previous 2 games, but it didn't come into play. And then they were also without, Brew, McCoy, C.J. Parks, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Murray, Connie Gonzalez, and Samuela Tulimaka. So all those guys sat out this game, so they didn't play. So got a lot of other kids in the game, and a lot of them actually played really, really well. The offensive lineman actually played another sophomore, Ty Marks, and a freshman, George Mikihan.
Oh,
and,
wow.
They did absolutely well for their first varsity starts, and Mason Kolachek moved over to center, and he did a wonderful job. He had no bad snaps, and so those guys, it was good to see those guys kind of get some experience and time. But everybody's all expected back next week. La Mirada didn't offer much resistance. Mater Dei kind of toyed with them, running off huge chunks of yards, whether it was JT's 60-yard touchdown run, Nico Remigio's 42, 50, or 28-yard TD receptions.
Right.
And then Jacoby Harper had a 62-yard run. And then fans finally got to see Chris Street run and what he has to offer. And he had 6 touches, only for 89 yards, but he averaged 13 yards every time he got the ball. And he also had a 20-yard run that was called back. But you could just see it on the field that he's going to be dynamic and he's going to be fun to watch, when he gets going there. So, our game was over pretty much at half, and the kids got to play, and they had the running clock in effect, and Mater Dei got it out of there with the 42-0 win.
All right. Let's keep it rolling here from Friday. Servite, another big game on Friday, went out to Inland Empire, took on Roosevelt of Eastvale, the number 1 ranked team in Division 4 in the CIF Southern section. Friars won 52-24. Got another fine performance from Jules Irvin, who returned a kick punt about 74 yards for a touchdown for the Friars. They're now 3-0, off to a fast start. I thought this was I called it a sneaky tough game. I thought perhaps for the Friars. I put a Twitter poll out there, but Servite, basically had no trouble. They scored 17 points in the first quarter. They were up 24-14 at halftime. They added another 21 points, I believe it was, in the third quarter. I think it was TJ McMahon had threw 2 touchdowns. It was 6 for 9 for 163 yards. He also rushed for 150 yards, so they got that dual threat. The Friars continue to run the ball surprisingly well, and DeLon Hurt is having a big year. 5 catches for 133 yards. I want to say DeLon's been over 100 yards in all 3 games. I'm pretty confident in that. Or if he was in the 80s and 90s in one of them. But what's your thoughts on the Friars?
I gave Servite a B on offense and an A on defense, and I'll get to why I gave them the B on offense. Pretty much Servite, showed Roosevelt the idea of what a Trinity League team is like. The Friars dominated both sides of the ball, but Roosevelt made it interesting, getting within a TD, in the third quarter to make it 24-17, but then, Servite's physical play came in and wore down Roosevelt. Servite outscored them, I think, 28-7 in the fourth quarter, and, ended up putting 52 points on the board. But the reason why, their offense actually moved the ball, but they had 16 penalties.
Wow.
And it actually caused them, they actually took 3 scores off the board. So
wow.
Penalties are still they're still having problems with the penalties. They got to take care of those, because when you play a tighter, closer game, that's going to be crucial. If you had 3 scores taken away, in a tight ball game. Defensively, Servite held Roosevelt to a negative 11 yards rushing. They held Musa, the Hawaii commit quarterback, to 233 yards passing. And like we said, for the third consecutive week, they got a big play from Julius Irvin on that punt return. So, Servite's actually, playing really well. They're playing physical from what they're doing against these teams. They just got to cut down the penalties. If they cut down the penalties, I think they'll be right in the thick of things with everybody. But that's just killing them right now.
Okay, well, I think I'm gonna be at Servite tomorrow on Tuesday, and I will ask Coach Meyer about those penalties, because that is concerning. Just think if they didn't have some of those called back, what it could have been. But still, Servite 3-0, And 3-0 is just like we just talked about Mater Dei moving to 3-0 against La Mirada. Let's keep it with those Friday night games. How about Orange Lutheran also going to 3-0, takes down Vista Murrieta. Now, Orange Lutheran got a huge performance from Ryan Alinsky, their junior quarterback, who we've talked about has an offer from Boston College. He passed for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns on the night. So, like we've thought, Orange Lutheran's got a lot of weapons. Ryan Alinsky is starting to make very good use of all these guys. They gave up, they had back-to-back shutouts, I believe, for the Lancers before this game. So they gave up finally gave up some points. That was just like Santa Margarita. They had 2 shutouts against La Mirada and Cathedral. So they gave up 20, but still a huge effort for Orange Lutheran. That was a Vista Murrieta team that it lost about 41-7 against Mission Viejo. So Orange Lutheran right there, almost with almost there with Mission Viejo, and also the Lancers were up 33-20 at halftime. So it was basically a 7-0 second half. That's kind of interesting. So, but what was your grades on this game, Scotty?
If I give them an A on offense and a B on defense, their passing game seems to be full effect.
Right.
And it's picking up each week. The Lancers went to the air early and often, this night. And Holinsky, he was 505, 4 touchdowns, 29 of 42 passing, and he spread the ball around. As 3 receivers had 100 yards receiving. 4 went 8 for 140. Logan Loya was 6 for 102. And tight end Elijah Moharo, 5 of 119. And he's a new name we haven't talked much about.
Right.
And, so add him to the mix. In all, the Lancers produced about 634 yards total offense.
Wow.
And they were just on all night long. But Vista Murrieta played Olu tight. They after one it was 20-13, and then Vista got it to 33-20 at the half, and then they never trailed again. And the Lancer defense contained everyone except for Khalil Shakur, who we had talked about before. He's lightning fast. He had 272 all-purpose yards and 170 yards rushing on 10 carries. But Vista could only muster 24 yards passing. So, and then, we're starting to see who's starting to jump out, as far as the top skills for Olu. And I know, Dan, remember earlier in our preseason show, I mentioned, I said, don't be surprised if Logan Loy emerges as that number 2 receiver.
Yeah, yep.
And that's what he has been beginning to be. It's been him and Ford have been doing, and then actually JoJo Hawkins is actually gets sprinkled in. He may not get a lot of the receptions, but then he gets 1 or 2. But he also has big plays on those.
Yeah.
And then you have Cam Gardner, and then Reginald Strong, who also he caught a TD coming out of the backfield. And now we have this tight end Moharo. So now that they're starting to build these skill guys, and it's gonna it's gonna make teams have to respect these guys. So that's what I have for Olu.
All right, well, pretty scary stuff for the rest of the Trinity League. I mean, Olu's offense is just looking dynamic. We know they got a lot to bring to the table. Let's move on. J. Sarah. They went up to, I believe they were against Bishop Amont. They were, I believe, the home team. They beat Bishop Amont 59-35. So they continue, the script continues to be the same for J. Sarah, where they are scoring a ton of points. They scored 59. The previous week against Alameda, they scored 48. And against Corona Del Mar, game I covered, they scored 45. But the script remains the same on defense as well. They actually allowed a few more points this week with 35. The previous 2 games, they had allowed 27. So, it seems like Jay Sarah's, they got the offense with Matt Robinson, who threw for 295 yards and 5 TDs. He actually had a pretty low completion percentage. He completed just over 50% of his passes. But Al Fisher continued to run wild, 17 carries for 130. They got, like we've talked about, tons of good receivers to watch. Munar McLean, 5 catches for 80. Tariq Luckett, 6 catches for 130. Tyler Shimura is an excellent junior as well. He caught a touchdown, but the defense just isn't there right now. So concerning for the JCR, because they haven't made any progress in the 3 games against Cornell Mar, Alamany, and Bishop Ammont. So you wonder what they're going to be able to bring. But what's your grades on the Lions?
Yeah, I gave them the A on offense, and again, I gave them the C on defense. And, that defense isn't doing them any favors against these, teams that aren't big offensive teams. So that's kind of, concerning. You'd have to think, especially when you're going to play these offenses in the Trinity League. So, but it appears that they're going to live and die by their offense. Like you had said, for that 3rd week in a row, they put an offensive show on, but they gave up 35 and they gave up another 300-yard passing performance to an above-average team. They routed them out of the gate, taking the 31-0 lead, and I don't know, maybe they kind of let down, at that time, Ammont hasn't been getting much offense in their previous 2 games with Blake Archuleta, so I guess he was benched for another quarterback, and so they actually brought him back off the bench, and he actually sparked them to 3 consecutive scores. So, but Jay Sarah's defense actually then decided to come alive and held them scoreless for the 4th quarter, and I think they got 4 sacks from Abdul Malik McLean, and then they got a pick 6 from Victor Clanton. So it's kind of for that 4th quarter, all of a sudden the defense comes alive for the first time that we've seen. They've actually stopped somebody when they've actually needed to. So, but again, their offense was pretty good. Probably the best play of the night was a 49-yard pass to Munyar McLean, who had a wicked straight arm, put down another Ammont defender, and then broke a tackle, on his way to the score. I mean, it was a pretty nice play, and but everybody else pretty much got into the act as you had said with all the stats for all the guys.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right, now we're going to conclude our Week 2 grades by saying that we saved it for the end. The game of the week last week was St. John Bosco taking on Chaminade. That was the Braves coming away with a 31-17 victory against Chaminade West Hills. So the Braves improved to 2-1. They're the only team in the Trinity League that has a loss, but of course, a very quality loss against St. Thomas Aquinas of Florida in that overtime game that we talked about. This was a very interesting game, and I'm very interested to see what you have to say about it, Scotty, because this game was 7-0 at halftime in favor of St. John Bosco. That's interesting because we've been talking about Bosco having some issues getting the offense rolling. Now, they scored 24 points in the second half. That's very good. If you can do that for both halves or something close to it, you're scoring in the 30 or 40 point range. And once again, it was the ground attack that was pretty potent for the Braves, which is not too surprising. Dual threat quarterback Riel Mitchell and running backs Demetrius Flowers and a guy you've been talking a lot, George Halani. They combined for about 250 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. So, Scotty, what's your thoughts on the Braves, the defending state and Division I champions?
Yeah, I gave their offense a B, and I gave their defense an A. I mean, defensively, they've been lights out all year long so far. But that big question was whether or not their offense could move the ball consistently on Chaminade's defense, and they did for a half, and it was the second half, but not the first half. And Chaminade kept Bosco's offense in check, for the first, half. Despite the Braves despite the Braves moving the ball,
right?
But they came away with no points. They missed a field goal and they fumbled the ball at the goal line. Which, if you looked at, if you rewatch the game and you look at the replay, he actually looks like he's down. But obviously, there's no replay, so they didn't get anything on that play. So they came away with no points, and then they get the pick 6 from Woodby. That makes it 7-0 at half. And then Bosco just basically what happened in the second half, they just wore him down in the second. They were able to just decided to just run the ball And, like you said, they ran for the 259, with Flowers, Real Mitchell and Helani, all three of them. And, Mitchell settled down in the second half, and he did finish 19 of 29 for 232. He had a touchdown, and he did have a pick, which they almost returned that pick to the house because it was right before the half, and they got it all the way down close, but they didn't return it. Defensively, Bosco, kept Chamonix offense in check. They never let the big running back Andrew Van Buren get loose. They intercepted the quarterback twice, with Woodby and his big one returning score. So with Bosco, it's the same. The defense is going to always be there. I don't think, they gave up 17, but I don't think anyone is going to get more than 17, with the exception of maybe one other team that's in the Trinity League. But
I think we know who you mean there. So
yeah, well, maybe a certain team wearing red. Well, that could be, but maybe maybe the Monarchs. But right now, it's looking like their defense is pretty stout right now, and offensively they're just gonna have to like we said, if they but this week isn't going to be offer any help from this week, and we'll get to that team who they're playing. But we'll probably have to wait the following week, which will give us another good telltale sign when they take on an out-of-state power.
Yeah. An interesting comment from Coach Negro after the game to the Long Beach Press-Telegram was that he said that Chaminade was a good team. He mentioned that they were quarterfinalists last year, but he did say that he thought they played poor defensively and in that first half, and they should have had some more points on the board. So I think we're on to something there. But of course, we got to, and like you've been complimentary of their defense. Jaden Woobley, Ohio State commit. All right, Scotty. Well, that is in the books there for week 2. Our grades from some pretty big games. Oh, actually, I actually left out one. My apologies. Santa Margarita Eagles. The game I was at on Thursday night. I almost forgot about it. Santa Margarita 61-7 over Alameda. This was my first chance to see Santa Margarita, and as we heard at the beginning of the show, that was Rich Fisher, the Santa Margarita football coach, bringing us some comments on this game. And my point to Coach Fisher was he didn't necessarily, maybe address it exactly how I was thinking. But I told Coach Fisher that I just thought they were so balanced in all three phases, offensively, defense, and special teams. They might have the best special teams in the county, and I said that because Dylan Brady kicked a 55-yard field goal in that game for Santa Margarita to end the first half, the last play of the game. So Alameda had, couldn't run out the clock, and gave Santa Margarita a chance, and Dylan Brady made them pay. And then Malone Matele, who nearly lost, I think, 2 fumbles, but one of them got recovered by Santa Margarita, and I think one he got back, or maybe went out of bounds, but he had a little handle problem. But the Utah commit is explosive, and he's very dangerous, and you've been always said, why teams are kicking to him. But what happens is that if the Santa Margarita defense is going to get stops, and you're going to have to punt, and there's going to be a chance that you're kicking to him a lot. And he's on kickoffs and punts. He's very dangerous, and he's just got quick feet. He gets up to high speed right away. So I was impressed with Santa Margarita. I was also impressed with their discipline. They had no turnovers, very few penalties. Their defense is generating takeaways. They're playing very fast on offense. Josiah Norwood is a dangerous scrambler. If they roll him out, I think he's pretty effective. He's fast enough that he'll cause most defenses, even in the Trinity League, some problems with his scrambling. But I think he can still. There's at times that he was a little bit off, and then he could get back into a rhythm. So I think he's an intriguing quarterback that could cause some trouble in the Trinity League. And I really like Chad Magyar as a power running back, and Caden Fitch they had going both ways, blocking, along with John McCartan and Jake Peters, who recently committed to Arizona. So they have a couple tight ends that are blocking. They played some power. They got their running backs. They seem to roll out Norwood, they don't have the superstars at receiver, but they continue to roll. What's your thoughts on the Eagles so far in this game here, Scotty?
Yeah, I mean, I gave them an A, and I gave them an A on defense. I mean, they just it was somewhat surprising. They came roaring out of the gate against Alamany with pretty much ease, seeing what Alamany kind of did to Jay Serra.
Right.
You know, they put up a fight with Jay Serra, and I thought maybe they would do the same with Santa Margarita, but you know they didn't. I mean, Alamany's not the juggernaut by any means, but you know, Santa Margarita kind of went through them like butter. You know, they just up and down the field, and you know, Alamany, you know, they gave Alamany, I guess, a different look. I guess they went with the hurry up tempo offense for the first time this year. I guess, you know, and I don't think they've done that all year long. And you know, I know you were there, so I don't know if they actually, you know, if they did that all game long. But it appeared that, you know, they may also have a new back that emerged. I don't know. Jake Thomas ran for like 9 times for over 100 yards. I don't know if that was in second half duty or not.
A lot of it was second half.
You know, he was up to his usual steady. You know, the thing with him is seeing how physical he runs for being a tall back. He runs high, but then he gets low on impact, and he like delivers a blow. And he was running over, you know, defenders, you know, a lot of the times that I saw. So, you know, and then you have to mention, like you said, Dylan Brady with his booming kicks and big field goals. And you had already touched on it, but yeah, they have. Santa Margarita has to have the best special teams this year with Brady and Matele in the return department.
Yeah, and Brady, he punts, so he's a lot like Stonehouse, Ryan Stonehouse of Mater Dei last year, and you know, he's sending everything as a touchback. So you know, if you're off, you're not able to generate much offense, and Santa Margarita is able to score and get a kickoff and touchback on you. If they're able to force punts and get the ball to Malone, it really feeds into their game. So and that's what I saw. Thomas did most of his damage in the second half, but he did have some first half runs. So they're spreading it out quite a bit at running back, I felt like. They didn't, you know, Malone, they could still probably get the ball to more. You know, he wasn't playing much defense either, Malone Matele. So they're spreading it out. I think they're going to be a dangerous team. But again, it's you know, there was a good gauge, I think, you know, comparing the score of Alamany, Santa Margarita Alamany, and Jay Serra Alamany was a good gauge. I haven't been overly impressed with Downey and the other team they played. Santa Margarita played Loyola. I know you've mentioned that you don't think Loyola is going to be Division I anymore. I probably agree with you. The way Alamany's season's going, we'll see how the Mission League goes. They're in the Mission League with Loyola. Maybe they're not Division I anymore, but still, Santa Margarita is, you know, for who they're playing, they're certainly doing outstanding. Well, hey Sky, let's transition to some of our players of the week. Who would you stood out to you as some Trinity League players of the week for this past week?
You know, we'll start at the top. You know, my offensive player. You know, JT was JT. You know, he was 13 of 15, 248, 3 touchdowns, and that 60-yard run. But you know, I have to probably go with one of the youngsters. You know, you could go with Mason Kolacek, the senior.
Okay.
You know, at center. You know, you could even go Chris Street, or even Ty Marks, or George McGeehan. I mean, I got to give them. They all did wonderful. I mean, I know you want to always give one player of the game, but you got to give any one of those could have been. You know, for defense, that's going to be Solo Tupupu.
Yeah.
He had 7 tackles, and he was constantly just blowing up the middle. And then for Bosco, you know, I went with Demetrius Flowers, you know, for being able to just to pound and ground through the tough yards in that second half.
Right.
Defense, I went with Jaden Woodby on that pick 6 that kind of gave them momentum going into halftime. And then for Jay Serra, I gave it to Matt Robinson for his 5 TDs. I know his percentage was down, but you know he is their offense, and it all starts with him. Defensive player of the game was Abdul Malik McClain with his 4 sacks. I don't know. Olu, you got to go with Ryan Holinsky with his 500 yards passing performance. I didn't have a defensive player, though. You know, Olu, you know, pretty much, you know, shut down, you know, Vista. Servite, with TJ McMahon for having that balance and
Right.
Having 100 yards passing, 100 yards rushing. I didn't have a defensive player of the game. Santa Margarita, Chad Magar, with him having that same balance, putting the 153, he always seems to have big yards, big reception in the game. And then I'll leave it to you for the defensive player of the game.
Yeah, I thought John McCartan is also playing two ways, and he was very disruptive. A lot of their guys are playing two ways for Santa Margarita, which is we've talked about on the Trinity League Football Podcast, but I'll give it to McCartan. And the Santa Margarita defense is doing something pretty interesting that I should tell Trinity League, share with Trinity League fans, is when their defense forces a turnover, you might see Santa Margarita defense celebrating on the bench by hoisting a wrestling or boxing style belt and having a good old time. I'm going to try to get some coverage on this on OCVarsity soon, but I caught a little bit of it. I mean, I definitely saw them hoisting up the belt during the game, and I wanted to ask you, Scotty, because somebody asked me that if they thought this was kind of out of character of Santa Margarita, and somebody presented to me that they thought this was real out of character and maybe represented some kind of shift with Santa Margarita. They haven't really been like that, but I took it as that they were having fun. I didn't think they were definitely doing it toward their sideline, and it was something that they kind of celebrated with themselves afterwards. I didn't have a big problem with it. I don't know if other teams will. I think everybody's kind of got their own little way to have fun. What do you think? Does this bother you that Santa Margarita is hoisting up a belt, something with their defense?
Not at all. And it's something that's kind of, if you're a fan of college football, that's where it started. And it's probably been going on for, I want to say, maybe like 2 or 3 years, but it's starting to be, I can't remember which team, but somebody it started with the belt. It's a champion, the turnover belt. And I think last night somebody had shoulder pads, the turnover, everybody has, somebody had, I think, had like a marching baton, and everybody has kind of customized their own, turnover belt, and you get to wear it, and it just brings camaraderie to the team. And I don't think it has any disrespect, being that yes, that they are kind of a traditionalist, private school, maybe that may come into play, but obviously I guess they probably took it to the head coach and asked, hey, can we do this? Sure. I don't think it's anything disrespectful, as long as you're keeping it on the sidelines amongst your team and not showing up
right.
the other team on, as you get it, or they hand it to you. That's the only problem issue that I could see, but I don't. It's all good on my part.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then, of course, the Santa Margarita coach is Rich Fisher, second-year coach, came from the college ranks, so he probably didn't have much of a trouble with it. And like I said, Santa Margarita, pretty disciplined. They had I think they barely had any penalties. Of course, the game was pretty lopsided. That certainly helps. But Coach Fisher is a hard-charging coach. He was, despite the lopsided score, he was barking at his players constantly. He actually, I think at one point in the game, they were up about 58-7 or something like that, or 54-7. They were up tremendously. He called a defensive timeout and barked at his team, and he was not happy that, Alamany had gotten about 4 or 5 games. It was marching down the field. He called the defensive timeout, and of course, his defense responded and forced a punt. So there's something there that I think the Trinity League fans will see from Santa Margarita. They can definitely know that he is pushing them very hard and almost demanding some perfection. So, and I guess that's obviously a sign of good coaching. He is really working hard and earning his pay there. So, Scotty, let's talk about this week's games here coming up, and we'll keep with the Eagles. They again play on Thursday night at Laguna Hills High School. The Eagles are playing there because their normal home field is Saddleback College. Well, it's under renovation. Santa Margarita is actually playing at Tribuco later this year as well, but they're back Laguna Hills. They're playing Mayfair. Mayfair is also from the Suburban League. Their record is 3-0, but they haven't really played anybody. I expect Santa Margarita to roll these guys again. I know there was one Eagles fan that thought it would be a mistake if people were to dismiss Mayfair. But for example, I responded to this one fan, a Santa Margarita fan on Twitter. He was cautioning people, don't dismiss Mayfair. Well, I knew Mayfair just beat Lakewood, which is not the same Lakewood as you might have heard of maybe 10 years ago, but Mayfair beat them, which is a quality victory in that Long Beach area for sure, 21-18. Well, Lakewood lost to Los Alamitos 56-0. Mayfair's also played Cal out of Whittier. They're not very good. They're from the Del Rio League, and then they beat Long Beach Wilson, Moore League team, another good Long Beach, for that area, Long Beach, 37-7. But the word on the Moore League teams is Long Beach Poly and everybody else is not that good. But what do you think of this game?
Oh, I'm right there with you, Dan. I don't think too much of that 3-0 record for Mayfair. It's funny because the Monsoons from Mayfair, they actually dropped Mater Dei and they picked up Santa Margarita this year. So
good point.
They just flopped one Trinity League for another one. They're still going to get the running clock and the game's still going to be over by half. So we've talked about the Eagles' strength of schedule and pretty much for a lot of teams in the Trinity League, and I know it's they have no power over it because these games are kind of scheduled in advance. Sometimes some teams drop right out of the way, and it's harder for these Trinity League teams to schedule because nobody wants to play them. So they kind of have to take what they get.
Right.
I give them that, and I understand that. But at the same time, it does nothing for your team. You get no read, and then you go into play in the Trinity League, and it doesn't do you any good. You got to have that one or two good games to polish you up, and so far a lot of these teams aren't getting that. And we're usually accustomed to a lot of these teams having one or two big games, and nobody's getting that this year. So.
Yep. All right. Orange Lutheran's finally going to make an appearance in Orange County. Of course, it is only week 3, but they are playing at Orange Coast College on Friday. They're playing host to Norco, and this will be a little bit of a theme here in week 3. So Norco, you can do some cross comparison, like we've been doing a little bit tonight, but this Norco team is, opened the season against Servite. Servite won 35-21. So now Norco comes in, playing Orange Lutheran on a Friday night, Orange Coast College, 7 o'clock. Norco played pretty well against Rancho Cucamonga last week, and actually it was 2 weeks ago. They haven't played since September 1st. So Norco's going to be coming off the bye, but their previous game was a 28-21 loss against Rancho Cucamonga, who is not as strong as they were last year, but it is still a 2-0 Rancho Cucamonga team. But that team hasn't been as they were on everybody's radar last year, but they opened up with a Cucamonga beat Chaparral 49-14 in their opener. Chaparral not a big powerhouse. I don't know if we'll get that much of a read on Rancho Cucamonga, but what do you think about Norco Olu?
Olu's, like I said, they're coming in 0-2, and when they lost 35-21 to Servite, and then they played, Rancho tough 28-21 loss,
right.
But it was without their top running back, Travis Dye. He sat out the game, so we'll have to see if he comes back this week. But I don't think Olu will have any trouble, with its passing game, and they should put up big numbers. Norco doesn't have a very good secondary, so they should be explore the mismatches. It's ironic. Look at Olu's rolling everybody, but last week we said their opponents were 0-6. Now they're up to 1-10.
Yeah.
Cathedral actually picked up a win last week. Finally, but 1-10. I mean, That's tough. I mean, I don't know if that gives you any gauge for anything, but it is what it is, and we'll just have to wait and see, because next week I think they actually play a viable opponent. So
they play Heritage.
Yep. Heritage, I think, which is actually supposed to be really pretty good. So that will be their very first test. So.
Yeah, Heritage, I believe, is the top team out of their league, is the Sun Belt League. That might be, they opened up, they haven't, I mean, they played Oaks Hill, which has been good in the last couple years, and did beat them 20-10. But here's another one, interesting one. So road trip time for Jay Sarah on Friday. Of course, we talked about their defense, and we're talking about the comparisons of scores. Well, they're going to be the third Trinity League team. Third straight Orange County team to play Vista Marietta, but they're going to go on the road to Marietta. That's a long drive out there. Vista Marietta has a good fan base, but Vista Marietta is 0-3, but they played good teams. We mentioned the Orange Lutheran score. They played Mission Viejo. They played a team from Georgia. But Jay Sarah, they're actually going to travel now, because they open the season not too far away at Newport Harbor High School against Corona Del Mar. What do you think of this game, Scotty?
Same boat. I think Jay Sarah comes in and takes them out. It's whether or not can the defense, keep the Mustangs under 27. That seems to be the magic number for Jay Sarah.
Yeah.
So, Vista can't pass. They're struggling the ball passing, and we've seen that in their past 3 games. So, and we've talked about Shakur, he being their only legit threat, and he got his yards last week against Olu a little bit. But, is this the week that Jay Sarah kind of gets their defense back on track, or does Vista Marietta put some points up on the board? But regardless, Jay Sarah's going to win this one. But it's just, we just want to see how it's done.
Yeah. All right. Then we got, in the biggest game, maybe in Orange County this week. It could be this one, which is Servite playing host to Villa Park. That game is going to be at Cerritos College on Friday. I believe that's a 7 o'clock kickoff. So Servite 3-0 taking on Villa Park, who's 2-0. There's been a lot of talk about the transfers at Villa Park. I don't think all of them are eligible quite yet. Servite has been playing, they've been getting the job done against some pretty good teams. Their record of their opponents is 3-5. They've been scoring a lot of points, not giving up as many points as like Jay Sarah. I think they played better teams. I think the Friars have faced better teams in Villa Park. The Norcos, the American Forts, maybe Roosevelt. But this game was pretty close last year. What do you think of this game? I kind of see the Servite Friars getting after Villa Park a little bit. But Villa Park's also coming off. They're another team, just like Norco, coming off the bye.
Yeah, this game would be a lot more interesting if those late influx, Corona transfers could play. I know you said some of them are playing, or a couple of them are, but I know that probably the 2 high-profile guys aren't yet. But they're going to take a 2-0 Villa Park on, who has wins over Damien 14-7 of Hawaii and Redondo Union 28-21. And then their quarterback, Paul Pyfrey, has thrown for 457, 4 touchdowns in 2 games, but he's only completing 51%. And then Dylan Bonilla is their main guy, 15 receptions, 302 yards. But, I think Servite's going to have, they're not going to get any resistance from the Spartans. And they're going to win this one pretty big. So it's just a matter of, can they control those penalties?
Yeah, and that might be hard against, a hard-playing, Villa Park team that has struggled in its own regard. Often it's been struggling with its own penalties. They play very hard for Deuce and Ansich. They try to play a physical brand. They're not going to be really intimidated. So I could see this could be, like you said, if that's something really Servite needs to work on, maybe they show some more discipline against Villa Park. park, but sometimes that's easier said than done with high school kids. Let's look at the 2 games on Saturday, Scotty. We'll start with the St. John Bosco Braves playing at Mission Viejo on Saturday, September 16th, and that game's at 4:15 kickoff. What do you think about this? This is the Bosco Braves taking on Dorsey. So LA City section for St. John Bosco team. Let's see here. Dorsey is 0-2. They're from they're Division I in LA, but not particularly the strongest competition for them. They've played 2 good teams. They lost to Calabasas pretty decisively, and even more decisively against Sarah of Gardena. So Dorsey's playing up, but I think this is another big win, pretty lopsided for Bosco.
Yeah, it's going to be a running clock. No need to say anymore. They're 44-7 loss to Sarah, and then look for probably another 63-0 game. Dorsey just doesn't have. Maybe they have some good attitude, but they just don't have the numbers. And seeing them struggle in those first 2 games, I can't see them putting up any fight whatsoever. So.
All right. And the last game of the week is going to be also on Saturday night. Another spotlight game for Mater Dei. They're playing Saturday night at Mission Viejo High School. I think it's a little bit later kickoff. It might be a 7:30 start for Mater Dei. And that is against Bergen Catholic of New Jersey, which is team is 1-0. Has been nationally ranked this season. They were 7-4. Last year. They're supposed to be a little bit better. I think this is. They're probably better than Bishop Ammont. They're much better than La Mirada. Are they as good as Gorman? Probably not. Probably no one's. I don't know if Mater Dei will face as good a team as Gorman this year, other than maybe Bosco or Centennial. But Bergen does have, they are, they're a private school. East Coast Power, kind of supposed to be better this year. I can see this as a pretty good game. I think kind of a dangerous game for Mater Dei. They're going to have to get it. I think they'll get some players back. You mentioned a lot of guys that didn't play, but what's your thoughts on this game?
Well, some of the luster was tarnished after this weekend because Bergen lost, so they're actually coming in at 1-1. They were upended by the nation's 38 ranked team, Archbishop Wood from Pennsylvania, 27-21. And Archbishop Wood was Pennsylvania's number 1 ranked team, and Bergen was actually New Jersey's number 1 ranked team. So that kind of everyone was like, oh, we wanted to see that matchup. Well, took a little bit off of it, but it's still going to be a good game. Bergen is actually led by Boston College commit quarterback Johnny Langdon, and he threw 6 touchdowns and 459 yards, but 5 of those came in the first game.
Yeah, he struggled in the last game.
Yeah, last year he struggled. He was 11 of 24. He had 1 touchdown and 2 picks last game. So the preseason read on Bergen is that they're a pretty gritty physical team, comparable to the old Loyola 90s teams. And I'm probably dating myself. Those who follow football, Loyola was, they were just a tough, hard-nosed, run-of-the-grill teams. The physical, they didn't have a lot of flash skill guys, but they had enough to get it done. But then they also took a hit, when they lost their 6'5", 225-pound defensive end linebacker Javante Jean-Baptiste, and he was actually dismissed from the team in early August, and he was probably their most dominating presence on defense. So, if MD gets all their starters back, I don't see Bergen making a run at MD, though I know a lot of my football colleagues, I will say, are closer to the vest at MD, think that this will be a good physical game, and I know you don't want to overlook anybody, and I don't think Mater Dei will, but I personally don't think that Bergen will be much of a match, and I also think JT is beginning to find his rhythm, because this past week he actually looked in sync, hitting, the receivers in stride, whereas I thought the first two games he wasn't, he threw the ball, but he wasn't on stride perfect like he normally is, and finally started seeing that last week. And when that happens, it's going to be tough to match MD score for score. So, and like we said, if they get all their tools back, because I think everybody's good to go next week. So.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, this is the first of back-to-back Saturday night games for Mater Dei. Next week they'll be playing up at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, taking on St. Mary's of Stockton. So, hey, Scotty, and as we close out the Trinity League Football Podcast, and we thank everybody for listening to us, I wanted to pose you one question that I have had to deal with, and gladly deal with it. I'm not complaining. But I should say the challenge for me was OC rankings this week. I want to know what your opinion is on ranking. Right now, this is a good gauge. We're going into week 3. If you had to rank, in order, the final kind of that second tier of teams in the Trinity League, because we clearly think that it's Mater Dei and St. John Bosco are that top tier. We previewed that. We've covered this podcast that way, thinking that Mater Dei and Bosco are clearly the top group, and then there's this next group that's very tight, and we've debated on it. But if you had to rank Orange Lutheran, Santa Margarita, J. Sarah, Servite, how would you do it? And then I will share you how I did it this week when for our OC rankings.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I know we've toyed with this back and forth, and it's like every week you could probably jump one or the other in front of each other. But, right now I'm going to go with Orange Lutheran. I'm still going to stay with J. Sarah, and I'm going to go Servite, and then Santa Margarita.
Okay.
So
now that's how I had it last week, and actually the previous weeks we were in agreement. Now, which is good for podcast debate, I switched it up this week. I went Orange Lutheran. Santa Margarita I gave the big bump to. Then I got J. Sarah, and then Servite, who I dipped on. I'm not really sure if they deserve that or not, but I'm keeping Olu there because I'm very impressed with all their skill, and Ryan Helinski at quarterback. I bumped up Santa Margarita just because their comparative score against Alemany and with Servite, with J. Sarah. I looked at the Santa Margarita and J. Sarah, common opponent, and Alemany, clear advantage for Santa Margarita. I gave him the bump, even though I think maybe J. Sarah's probably play a little bit tougher schedule. But then J. Sarah, I brought him back down because their defense concerns me. But do give them some credit for some good victories. And then Servite, probably no fault of their own. I have them the last team in the Trinity League where they've taken care of business against their opponents. Sometimes they've been more, some Fire fans have told me that these games are not as close as they're appearing on paper or on the internet. And maybe that and Servite's doing some really good things and having seeming very confident in taking down these teams that they're supposed to take down. You've talked about some problems, but with the penalties, but any response to my ranking, Scotty?
Yeah, Dan. I mean, they're very good, and I'm right there too. I could flip, Santa Margarita and Servite just as easily. It's one of those where I think we're splitting hairs. That's how tight now most of these teams are, and that's what's going to make the Trinity League so much fun when we get into league play, because every single one of those games is going to be so fun to watch. Because I don't think it's not, we're not going to get these defensive stops. I mean, you may for a little bit, but they're going to be wide open games. So. And it's just whoever, and I know the defense wins the championships, and the which usually the teams that have the tougher defense is usually going to prevail. But we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I could easily go with your top your top 10 your ranking for the Trinity League teams.
Well, I could easily go with yours as well, Scotty, and I have been. So, but splitting hairs, as you put it. That's what we do the best. We try to do the best here at the Trinity League. Like you said, we try to get down. We pull up our sleeves, try to get hardcore, get down to the nitty-gritty on some of this stuff, because that's what's so much fun for us here on the Trinity League. Well, Scotty, I will see you on Saturday, right? At down there at Mission Viejo?
Yes, I will, Dan. Yes.
All right. Well, hey, Scotty, great job, and thanks again for joining us and all your great insight.
You're welcome, Dan. It's good. I love talking with you. I mean, I probably could go on for another hour and breaking even more down, but I know we're limited. So,
well, we appreciate it for the time we do have, and again, we thank Scott Barajas for all his insight into the Trinity League, and we thank you, all the listeners, for once again joining us here on the Trinity League Football Podcast.